Alright, in this video we're going to use the properties that we looked at in the last video and use them to justify our steps as we solve equations and go through the actual process of solving some equations. So our first equation that we're going to solve and identify properties for is x divided by 3 plus 2 equals negative 3. So you ask yourself, what's the first thing that we should do in order to solve for x in this problem? And the answer to that question is that we should subtract 2 from both sides. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, what property did we use in order to justify subtracting 2 from both sides? We used the subtraction property of equality. Okay. Now, in order to solve for x, what do we need to do next? We've got x divided by 3 equals negative 5. To get rid of that division by 3, we're going to multiply both sides by 3. And what property do we use when we multiply both sides by the same number to maintain equality? We use the multiplication property of equality. Good, easy example for us to start with here. Only 2 steps. And we've solved the equation and used properties to justify both steps. Let's look at the next problem. We're going to solve this and identify the properties that we use. So we've got 3 times the quantity x minus 5 plus 2x equals 11. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of these parentheses by multiplying the 3 through the parentheses. What property did we use to get rid of those parentheses? Well, we distributed the 3 through. We used the distributive property. And then I'm going to move those x's next to one another. And if we do that, we've changed the order of things that are being added together in the problem. That is the commutative property of addition. And then we're going to add those x's together. 3x plus 2x gives me 5x. And that's combining like terms. Which again, if I was getting really technical, we could say that that's the distributive property working in reverse. But I'll be happy if they call it combining like terms. And then the next thing we need to do to solve for x, we're going to add 15 to both sides. When we add the same thing to both sides, that's the addition property of equality. And then the last thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 5 to get x by itself. When I divide both sides by the same thing, that's my division property of equality. All right, one more example. All right, solve the following equation and identify the properties used to justify each step. 8x plus 2 times the quantity x minus 3 equals 5 times the quantity x plus 4 minus 7. In the first step, I'm going to go ahead and use the distributive property twice, once on the left side and once on the right side. And so that was the distributive property. Then I'm going to combine like terms. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on both sides. And now, let's see, I want to move my numbers over, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. When I add something to both sides, it's the addition property of equality. And then I'm going to get my x's all on one side. I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. Subtracted something from both sides. That's my subtraction property of equality. And the last thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to divide both sides by 5. I divide both sides by the same thing. That's my division property of equality. Okay, and that's it for using properties while we solve linear equations. And that's the end of this lesson and the end of this video. See you next time.